Today, I'm talking with Thomas Schramm, community manager at Sky E-Red in Germany. Sky E-Red is a new studio and they are working on their first game, Battle Frontier. It's not yet released, and we're going to discuss what it's like being a community manager in that situation. Welcome to the show, Thomas.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you on the show. But before we go into that story of what it's like being a community manager when there's not actually a game released, I want to hear your story about your path into becoming a community manager. Tell us how that happened. Start as early as back as you want.
It's always very interesting. Like whenever I meet another community manager, I want to hear their story because it's always a different one. For me, it started with being a hobby, actually. When I was 13, I didn't speak a lick of English. I joined my first English community about a game I loved called Halo 1. You might know it.
Just a little like indie game that hardly anyone's heard
Tiny
of.
game. Yeah.
No, the
So
very
my dad
opposite.
My dad played it all the time when I was a child on his PC. I never played Halo 2 at that point, but I really loved that game and I wanted to join online communities talking about it. But there were no German ones, so I had to join the English ones. I had to learn English and very slowly build my way up. Every day I logged on and really loved interacting. And before I knew it, I became part of the administration team for that site because I was just too active. Like I was always there. You need these kinds of people in your communities that are there all the time anyway, and I was a natural fit. And since then, it was always my hobby, like in the background, like this nerdy hobby that I didn't tell anybody about, that I didn't really take that seriously. To basically be part of like Halo gaming sites. There was a website called HaloCustoms.com, which is basically my very first gaming website that I became a part of, where we hosted custom games of Halo. So I've always had this little side hobby going, but I never really thought about it too much. Uh, of course, thinking about your future, I was like, I need to find a real job. I need to like get an education and like something that might interest me, but it has to be like a good and real job. So after graduating, I actually went into biology and
Biology.
laboratory research. Yes. So I was like, I really like biology. It was part of my studies, and I was like, I'm gonna have like a university degree in this and a very boring laboratory job. But I always kept this hobby going. And when I was really bored in lectures about biology, I was joining a community about the upcoming game from Bungie, the makers of Halo 1, called Destiny. And it was the Destiny subreddit. I was very active there. I was talking with everybody about it. And right before launch and things hit the fan, I was added to be a moderator for that place. And Destiny since then became a ginormous franchise. We've had millions of players streaming into the Destiny the game subreddit. So at that point, I was a little bit bored about doing my studies and poured all of my time into being a moderator on that forum. Basically, like up to 10, 12 hours a day moderating, like keeping the game place running. And also meeting people like the community managers for Bungie later on, because they're, of course, interested in the biggest community around the game.
How did you
So
meet them? Online or in real life?
I did actually meet them at Gamescom. So
Uh-huh.
back then it was David Dake, also known as Deej, who I somehow coaxed into inviting me to like an exclusive influencer event. I was a nobody
Wow.
because I was just always in the background. And that's how I really like kind of snuck my way into like the circle of influencers and community leaders. And ever since then I was part of it actually. And I talked to David, like, do you think I could do this job, like community manager, what you're doing? And he's like, yeah, if you want to, why not? I was like, wasn't really that interested or like really passionate about it. But that's when like the thought of actually doing this as a job instead of a hobby formed. And ever since then, I tried to get a little bit more professional. And I found I stopped doing my biology degree. I went and found like a degree that was relevant for community management. So media
What?
sciences, basically.
Sorry, what degree did you do?
Applied cognitive and media sciences. It sounds a
Okay.
little like a word mouthful, right?
It does indeed.
And I did find a company that wanted to hire me based on my experiences as somebody who's managing like millions of players. That was the game company that still exists to this day, Colibri Games in
Mhm.
Berlin, with their mobile games. And I basically started as a working student. So that was my first foray into it. I always loved it as a hobby, but I never really pursued it or thought about doing this actually like as a job. This is not a real job, I always thought. But once I met with David and he gave me that that pep talk that, yeah, if you want to do it, just do it. I really love the idea. Also doing something you love and not just doing something that you think is a good career, but would have never fulfilled me. I'm personally not that good at doing something I'm not passionate about. So right now I am doing my dream job just from doing it as a hobby, which is fun. And this is how I got into it.
Excellent. This is several things I just want to say quickly. First of all, for people who are not based in Europe, we mentioned Gamescom. That is the biggest gaming industry event in Europe, based currently in Cologne every year, but it used to be, I think, Leipzig, no? Um,
That's a while ago.
so you got invited to the industry part of the event,
Yes.
not
So
the consumer one. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Secondly, um, we have a member of our team at Feature Upvote who also studied biology, did
Oh.
did, an internship or what you call a practicum in Germany as, in the lab, and realized this was not for her. So you're not alone.
Absolutely me.
Apparently, it's really tedious working all day in a lab. A lot of it's just cleaning. But you said you found that you're a natural fit for as being a moderator in, the subreddit for Destiny. In what ways do you think you're a natural fit? Tell me.
Over the years, I've noticed what makes like a good community moderator. And I think I was that somebody who's there anyway, somebody who likes being on the platform and who sees everything anyway, be it like good posts, bad posts, things that should be moderated. Somebody who's not like, oh, okay, I need to like do the moderation queue. But people that love talking about the game are super passionate, that love everything about it. So having this somebody that is really into the community aspect, the interaction, and having a game that a community is based around, but then becoming so much more, being a social experience. These people that really thrive on having these experiences, they really are what you want in both your moderation team, but also as your community manager that is hands-on with like the players.
I really like this story. I really like the path you went down, and definitely that you were bold enough and wise enough to realize you were on the wrong path for what was gonna satisfy you. Um, yeah. Okay, I wanna go back to the story we promised to talk about in the intro. So Sky E Red is a studio I'm guessing very few people have heard of because they're brand new, right? I think the how old is the studio?
The studio was founded in 2023, but it was only like the inklings of a studio, how these projects start. But it really picked up steam in 2024. But now we have a big team starting in 2025.
And
But
that's working on a game called Battle Frontier.
yes,
What type
so
of game is this?
Battle Frontier is my baby now. I started working in February there, and Battle Frontier is basically think of 3D action monster taming. So there's monsters that roam the world that you can fight and capture. You might know a game like that, but the hook, the kicker is that there's fighting game mechanics. So the people that are really familiar with 3D fighting game mechanics in like per se Dragon Ball games, I'm gonna be very familiar with our gameplay. So marrying this monster taming, which I have discovered is a ginormous genre with so many passionate players, and also having like a very complex combat system where you are actively having all of the control. There's no turn-based, there's no automatic attacks. You are fighting alongside your monster or with a merging with your monster into like a super powerful form. So it gives you both the nice PvE and PvP battle experience that is like semi-competitive, but also capturing and bonding with your monsters. And then I really, really like the hook of merging with the monsters that you've been like training up and then becoming a super powerful form and beating your opponents, be it PvP or PvE.
So that's the part of the interview that's gonna really make your boss and manager happy. We got a really good
Yes.
description. So
Yes.
you're managing the community of this game, but I'm gonna imagine that it actually doesn't have much of a community yet. So what do you do when you come onto a game that it hasn't been released with a young studio as a community manager? What do you do?
It's been really interesting so far because in my career, I've had most of the time already an existing community. So when I started my hobby, like Destiny the game, I came in with 20,000 people. Now with 3.3 million. When I joined Colibri Games, we already had millions of players. When I worked for PUBG Mobile, we have millions upon millions of players. What do you do then if you start from scratch?
This is the
And
good question. Yes, tell me.
yes, that's the $1,000,000 question. And being able to answer it well and taking your own advice and making a success is something that can make you rich. But I've just been breaking it down into small parts. Like, what does a developer need? What does a game need to start forming a community? I'm not only a community manager, I specialize in community development. So thinking about what is the core that you need to create where then people can revolve around, where people can gather, and what qualities does this core of a community need to have? It needs good rules, good presentation. It needs to show players immediately what the game is about, and also have some world building that can imagine what the game's gonna be. I came into a project that was underway, but still in development, of course. How do you then create a community? The first thing I actually did was do an analysis. What is currently going on? What did the game designer and what did the development team already create? So I didn't start it from scratch. Most of the social media did already exist, but of course, me as a community professional and also social media professional, I can say, okay, these are things we could improve. Let's do an overhaul. So I planned it. I made sure to show it to the rest of the team. A lot of our people in our team already had invested a lot of time into it. So I didn't want to just yank it all out and create from scratch. I wanted to preserve it and build on the good foundations that were already laid. So I made a ginormous plan because I'm a very analytical person and I really like documenting what I do, and made an overhaul, creating all of the like the basic stuff. Like usernames should all be the same across the board. The profile descriptions should immediately tell you what the game is about and like build like set expectations and really go into like a base level of quality for the socials.
Mhm.
And that's just the basis, but you still don't have anybody that cares about your game or follows you. You can also make good quality social media content and hope, but you are always at the mercy of an algorithm, which
Sure. Aren't we
is,
all?
aren't we all? Yes. So I'm a little bit of a cheater that way. I try to make good quality content, but I am very aware that it will not lead to this to get the snowball rolling. You need to have a little bit of like people that care about your game. Just win a few people over, and you already have tripled the people that care about your game. So right in the beginning, things like looking about what people are already talking about games like your game, like on Twitter, which is a really open platform. You can take a look at where are people talking about like monster taming games and what communities are about there, and joining those communities, talking to those people, not only to shill your game, not only to do advertising, but also join the conversation, talk to other developers. So doing this very tedious growth work, talking to people, social listening, joining communities is what gives you this first boost. So joining existing community is basically the low rundown of what I did and what I'm still doing at the very start. Look, identify, think about what makes your game tick. What is it about? What other communities are there that are already about similar games like this? Joining them, and don't be too spammy because you're gonna get banned. Me as a community moderator knows this. Me as a redditor knows this.
You're on the
Uh,
other side of the fence now.
Yes. Reddit is actually a very interesting platform. There's so much potential for going viral. There's so many games actually started getting their publicity there, but getting around the filters, getting around the moderation team, actually being able to post is sometimes something no marketer wants to deal with.
Yeah.
Me being a 10-year Reddit moderator has some experiences with this that I can actually post without getting banned, like reading the rules, which is apparently very hard for many people.
So apart from reading the rules, what tips do you have for being able to get um, promote yourself or your game on Reddit without getting banned? What tips do you have?
So you can't think about Reddit as one platform. I mean, everybody says this, but it is, of course, a collection of many different communities and moderation teams. Some of them are really open to you sharing stuff. Some of them are really, really tight. Generally, the bigger the site, the more rules there's going to be. You should not think about, oh, wow, r/gaming is the biggest subreddit. I should definitely post there. You're going to be banned immediately. The moderators deal with developers like you every day.
Mhm.
And there's not even going to be a single person looking at you. There's going to be a bot that's already banned you. So think more about what are little niche communities that actually would appreciate this content and basically get your feelers out and talk there. And it really helps if you're not creating a new Reddit account. It helps if you have an existing one, maybe one you've been using personally. Like as a community manager or social media manager, you might be like, oh, I'm just going to use a brand account. The thing is, like, my first brand account on Reddit was automatically declared spam because I added like a link tree link, which
Uh-huh.
like, so you have so many hurdles to clear if you have a new account for your game. So it's better to have like a developer account, somebody that's already been on Reddit, talking to small communities, reading their rules. If you want to make sure, and moderators really appreciate this, really message the moderators, is this fine to post? They might be a little passive aggressive, just be nice. They're not being paid for this,
Yeah.
which is why they're usually like not that nice to you, but it's fine.
This is
And then
something
you
really
can,
important to remember.
yes,
Like, people crap over Reddit moderators, but you've got to remember that mostly they're doing this as a hobby, free, and there's a lot of repetitive nonsense you have to go through. So it's really important to remember that. I like this, what you're saying. Sorry for interrupting. Please keep going.
no, it's definitely very interesting to see from the other side. I mean, you think of the typical Reddit moderator, probably not like me, but yeah, there's definitely been many cases where moderator teams have messed up. Of course, they're not professionals. They're just fans that happen to reserve the subreddit at an early time, get in other people. And it's just fans. Like, you don't have the professionalism of like community professionals. There's gonna be people that mess up, people that just have negative publicity. And yeah, you
That's
will
great.
have to you will have to really deal with moderation teams that might not be ideal, but that's how Reddit works. It would be impossible to moderate otherwise if you didn't have community volunteers.
Yeah. So before we started recording, you told me that you're actually willing to talk a little bit about what it's like being unemployed. You're currently employed as a community
Absolutely,
manager, but
yes.
you did go through a period of unemployment, right? And this is a very common theme in the games industry, particularly now, but I think it's always a very volatile industry. Tell me your thoughts on what it's like to have to deal with both unemployment or the fact that for many people, it's this real uncertainty even when they have a job.
Absolutely. I really wanted to talk about this topic because it's something some people are not that keen on, like focusing on. Of course, you're talking as a community professional, you want to be hireable in the future. You would like to, especially in our job, you often could focus on the positive instead of the negative. But of course, being unemployed right now is a very real risk as a community manager. So what happened to me is that I worked for an agency and I was hired for a big client. The client jumped off the contract and I was let go along with my entire team. So now I suddenly had to find a new job. And as you have seen, in the current climate of our industry, people are being let go left and right on these ginormous games. Like there's so many talented people that are also looking for a job. And me, as like a medium community manager in terms of experience, I get a dwarf by these industry giants that are also competing for these very limited jobs because there's also not a lot of new companies popping up that have the budget to actually pay you. So you're either stuck accepting a very low paying job or you might be on the lookout for a long time. I've actually been looking for 5 months, which was devastating to my morale. And like I've been having self doubts like, do I even know anything? Is community management even a real job? So all of these thoughts are getting worse and worse while you get rejection after rejection after rejection. And I was very close after 5 months, and people have been looking for a longer time than I have. But I was very close to leaving the industry, and I just got very lucky that I had like networked 3 years before with the company that I'm currently working at, and they contacted me. I didn't even
Wow.
apply to their company. So I got very lucky to get out of this situation. But I could just be in this situation still. I what I tried to do was like get more hard skills. So I want to be a community manager that really can do everything. So I know a little bit of coding, a little bit of website design, video editing, photo editing. But like getting all of these hard skills and being the jack of all trades is how I try to like make myself better on the job market. But it's hard out there. Even if you're doing everything correctly, it might not work out. And really, you have to, if you're in that situation, you have to stay strong, do the numbers game, try to reach out to people. I mean, it worked for me because I've been networking.
Yeah.
It is in our industry and in our job description to talk with people and network, but it might not work out. And you just need to persevere, keep on going, and try to find some hard skills that put you above the rest of all the others.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do.
It's hard time. I in my career, I've only had one brief period of being unemployed, but I still remember how much that hit my self-esteem so quickly. I've always been very confident in my job, and all of a sudden, I found that I had all these self-doubts too. Yeah, it's a cruel thing. It really is. And you also mentioned to me when we were talking offline that you feel sometimes community management team tend to be the first to go, right? If and when times get bad.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're not doing the product. You are not iterating on it. The product will be released without you. You are the cushion between the product and the bridge of communication between the product and the consumer. But somebody that is pulling the shots is gonna look at marketing and is gonna kick it out first, and it's gonna have the least impact on the product. Of course, that's short-sighted. There's a lot of people that are very passionate about this topic, but it is the truth that marketing is the first one to go.
Yeah.
And you will always have to leave doors open, network, and try to put yourself in a position where you're very hireable and you get the experience that you need. For me, in my first 5 years on the job, I stayed in the same company doing the same tasks, and I put the plunge after 5 years to really get a new position, which turned out to be not a mistake, but I was unemployed after that position failed on me. And I still think it was a good decision because I've since then learned so many skills that now differentiate me. So I think you have to really think about acquiring new skills in a new position, but also stability. Right now, I would really like put stability above everything else. If you have like an employer that's been really good about keeping the employees and it's been really supportive, think about really, if you really want to take that plunge right now in the current job market, is what I would say, because it's not fun out there. And
No, no.
you can see on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people in that same boat. So if you're currently in that position, my heart goes out to you. Stay strong, do the numbers game, do the minimum at least if you can't do otherwise. We all have imposter syndrome. We all think about, am I even enough? What can I even do? Does everybody reject me? But if you keep it up, statistically, it will work at some point. And otherwise, like me, I was looking at other industries. I was just lucky.
Yeah. Other industries do exist, and I think it's good to remember that this is a possibility. You know, it's not the end of the world if you have to move temporarily or forever into another industry.
Yeah,
And some of the skills you develop as a community manager are so useful in other industries, really. But the really important thing, though, I think you said there, well, one of the really important things is the importance to always be networking or frequently be networking, go to events, meet with other community managers, other people in the industry, just being because you don't know when you'll need this. And you can't it's much harder to do once you're in that situation of unemployment, so do it now while you can.
absolutely.
Um, there's some really good tips there that you've given us, but I wanna know, in general, how do you go about learning to do your job better as a community manager?
The thing is that you can always identify things where you can improve, but you don't always have the capacity to do it immediately. So just being mindful of whenever you have to when you have a task and you have to then give it to somebody, would you would you be able to learn that skill that you're missing that somebody else then has to do? For example, like small edits on a website, small edits in a video, small edits in Photoshop. So whenever there's a hard skill missing, I really believe that like doing a small course or doing some tutorials can really set you apart, and like keeping an eye out and being open to learning some of these skills that make you a jack of all trades. Because at the end of the day, community managers is the job is not clearly defined. Every company wants a different skill set from you. You are sometimes social media manager, marketing manager, editor. You all of these things sometimes, and yes, it's unfair, but that's the reality of it. If even if you're overwhelmed, take a little hard skill, take a little lesson of things you can do the next time yourself, and become that powerhouse. And take these little small learnings from the things that you would usually pass off to somebody else. Of course, it's sometimes good for you, like you can't do everything, but I really like to identify these things and then learn it because I love learning at the end of the day.
Oh, I think you've nailed it there. To love learning, but also to keep learning. So you talked about the role of community manager being not well defined, and in fact, this is your job currently also is more than community manager. You said it's community developer, but you're also doing marketing. Tell me about how that is to be doing all of these roles.
Absolutely. Just first, you can really tell from a community manager listing whether whether the company that's behind that actually knows what they want. Because sometimes they just need like three people, but they want you to do everything. What I really appreciated from my current company, which is why I even took the job, is that they're very upfront about the limitations of one person, but also that they needed a lot of skills that I didn't have yet, but were also very willing for me to learn on the job and not expecting me to do everything perfectly. So right now, I am basically the marketing guy for our company. And with indie companies, that is the reality. Very early on, like solo devs do it all. Like I don't know how they do it. Respectable, especially the ones that like go viral with very cool marketing things. How do they even make the game? But when you're the community manager or social media manager for a small indie company, you of course have to wear a lot of hats. That is expected, and I really took it as a challenge. Uh, I wasn't there like 5 years ago, I would have gone under. It would have really destroyed my mental health to be in this position. But now, because my previous jobs were a little restrictive, I was a small cog in a complex machine. Right now, I can really take all the skills I accrued and learn so much in this small time frame that I really love my current job. And it is what you sign up for becoming a social media community manager for a small indie game. Because you can't just say, wait, I'm just here to go to talk about the community. Why am I suddenly having to reach out to journalists or make all the marketing material? That's about it. You have to be really respectful with your own time to say, hey, I need to prioritize this. I can't do it all. I know it. I'm just one person. And always do the high impact stuff first and ask for help if you need help, because like your game designer can take some work. Like my game designer is so helpful. He's always there when I need help. And he's the reason it's been going really well so far. And that's the reason I can clock off when I'm actually off. So
Ask for
don't
help.
oh,
Ask for
ask
help.
for help.
That's a good one.
Absolutely. Because your team
Thomas,
is there to support you.
they are. Thomas, we're almost out of time, but I still have one very, very important question for you.
Okay.
What game have you been playing lately?
Oh my God. I have always been a core gamer and I like always look down on mobile games. But now I'm a mobile gamer because I have less time. I've been really, really into, and I know it's very generic, but Pokemon trading cards, like the app. Oh no. So opening 2 packs a day and like trading with my girlfriend and like battling with my girlfriend is something you can really share with everybody. I got all of my friends into it. It feels like back in the day playing like Pokemon. I've gotten all my friends and my girlfriend into it, and we're all just trading cards and trying to complete a collection on the app. And
That's
it's really
cool.
good. I can recommend it. It's fun.
Once you have less time in your life for games, you begin to realize why mobile gaming is so big.
Absolutely.
It's a very common story or answer I hear to this question is that, well, I used to play a lot more, but I don't have time now. It's a really common answer.
I mean, the game I'm currently playing and that I've been like kind of putting on the back burner has been Final Fantasy 16, which is so long and there's a very dull middle part. So yeah. I feel like I can't start a new one until that one's done.
Okay, Thomas, that's all we have time for today. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Where can listeners get in touch if they'd like to know more about what we've discussed today?
Oh yeah, our game can be definitely taken a look at. It's a Battle Frontier game on all platforms, basically. And me, you can talk to me. I'm Thomas Schramm on LinkedIn and Fuzzle, Fuzzle, on Twitter.
Okay, we'll have that linked in the show notes. Bye, Thomas.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.